Welcome back to the PhoneGap Essentials course on NetTuts Plus Premium. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at the Contacts API. The Contacts API gives us complete access to the user's contacts list. It allows us to search through current contacts, to create new contacts, to remove them, and to update existing contacts. The access to the Contacts API is very important for business applications and is a major plus in PhoneGap's favor. Looking at the API, we have two methods, find and create. Create will create a new contact object, and we can fill that object with information. But that object will not exist in the user's contact list until we actually save it. Find, on the other hand, will conduct a search through the user's contact list based on matching a string that you define against any of the particular contact fields that you wish within the contacts list. This means that you can match versus last name, first name, or company name. You can base your search on any of the viable contact fields. A contact itself is actually quite a complex object. There are many different pieces of information that can be stored within a contact. Not all of these pieces of information are accessible by all platforms, so this is a case where you really need to get to know your platform, whether it be Android or iOS, or BlackBerry or Windows Phone, because their contact objects are all structured a little bit differently. As you can see, a contact is made up of an ID, a display name, a name, a nickname, phone numbers, emails, addresses, and many more pieces of information. Some of these pieces of information are actually in themselves objects. Name, for example, is actually an object called contact name. And this object itself is made up of many different parameters. There's family name, given name, middle name, including honorific prefixes such as Mr. or Dr. Make sure you carefully read through the documentation for this one. In the quirks section, it'll tell you any inconsistencies between the different platforms. For example, in iOS, display name is not supported and will be returned as null. In BARDA, birthday is not supported. As you can see, there are many different quirks for this API, so it's best just to have a look yourself. So let's get started. From Eclipse or Xcode, open up your index.js. We're going to start by adding a contact. I'm going to make a call to a function that I'm about to create called addContact. We're going to create a new contact object that we can then add information to. I'm creating a new variable called contact and setting it equal to navigator.contacts.create. Next, I'm going to set the display name variable of this contact object to Tuts Plus. And I'm going to set the nickname as well. Next, I want to set a first name and a family name for this contact object. For that, I need to create a new contact name object. Now, I can set the given name of this object and the family name of the object to create a combined name of Tuts Plus. Now I just need to associate this contact name object with our contact object. Contact.name equals name. All that's left now is to save this object to the user's contact list. For that, I use the save function, which is a method of the contact object. The save method requires two functions as callbacks, one for success and one for error. Let's just block those out now and create an alert box in the case of success and in the case of error. You'll notice that both of the functions have parameters being passed to them. On save success, we have the contact object that we've just created passed back to us, and on an error we have a contact error object which contains an error code that we can use to help us debug our application later. If we run the application, we'll find that it opens up and instantly gives us an alert box that says Save Success. This is to be expected, so let's close the app and have a look at the emulator's contact list. As you can see, our emulator now has one contact. Clicking on it reveals that the nickname is Tuts Plus and the full name is Tuts Plus. If we open our application again, it will do the same thing, this time creating a second entry. You now see that there are two Tuts Plus entries. We can have more than one entry with exactly the same details. What you can't have is two contacts with the exact same ID. Let's try and use the findContacts method. We'll comment out our app.addContact call and create a new one. I'm going to call this function findContacts, and I'm actually going to pass it a string. In this case, I'm searching for any contacts with the word tuts in them. I'll block out our findContacts function, remembering that we're going to be receiving a string when it's called. To do a search of the contacts, we first need to define our options. We create a new object in a variable called options, called ContactFindOptions. We first need to define our options filter. This has to be a string, and it's essentially our search keyword. In this case, I'm going to pass the variable that I received through the function. Next, I have to define if I want this call to return multiple results. By stating true, it means that I'll receive an array of contact objects matching my search term. Finally, I need to define a filter. This is essentially an array stating all the different contact fields that I want to match my search term against. This is not part of the options object and is passed separately to the find method. So let's call the find function. Located on the navigator.contacts object, the find method requires a filter, a success callback, an error callback, and our options object. I'm just going to block out both of our callback functions. Here's our find success callback, which comes with a contacts object. If we have options multiple true, this contacts object will actually be an array of contact objects. And error, as usual, comes with an error code, which we'll display with an alert box. Next, we need to do something with our contact objects that are returning. Let's iterate through the entire array and print each of the contacts to our test zone div. So now, for each of our contacts, we're going to go into the test zone inner HTML and add the contact's display name to the div. Before we execute though, I'll just fix a little typo up here. This should be options, as we defined here. And there you can see, it's pulled in the two contacts that we have on this emulator, Tuts Plus, Tuts Plus. It is important to note that this filter command also decides which information is passed through in our contacts objects. By nominating display name, that is the only information that we're receiving. Finally, let's take a look at the remove method. Instead of printing each of our contacts here, we're going to remove them. thereby resetting our emulator to its previous state. So for each contact, we're going to run the remove method. The remove method requires two parameters to be passed: a success callback and an error callback. Let's block those out now with some alerts so we know whether or not it worked. So here I've created two new methods: on remove success with an alert, and on remove error with an alert stating the contact error code. Let's run this in the simulator and see what our result is. Okay, here we saw two back-to-back alerts telling us that removal was successful. If we exit the app now and go into the emulator's contact list, you'll see that the contact list is completely empty. Well, that's all for this lesson. If you'd like an extra challenge, why not try creating a web form? You can use just the everyday HTML tools you would usually use to create a form, but on the Submit button, run a function and create a new contact object and add that contact object to the user's contact list. Ciao!